taking prayer out of the school, so I don't want to even, skip a beat here. Taking prayer out of the school has had consequences. If you're looking for empirical data, the data's in, folks. Since we have removed the Bible, since we have removed fundamental Christian studies and the morals that came with that, as well as prayer and that conscience that we instilled back in the 50s and through the 60s as we were removing that, gutting that, and actually creating a self-gratifying society where kids are told, well, do whatever it feels good. And as a matter of fact, that's when drugs, free love, and all of these things have consequences. We're at a point now where we're reaping the consequences of this, and people are scratching their heads going like, what's happening with this Me Too movement? What's happening with all of these terrible things? When you debase a society, these are the consequences. This is the outcome. And so if you want to change, it's not about the Second Amendment. It has nothing to do with the Constitution other than the fact that the Constitution is being egregiously violated. Get the government out of the classrooms, get the government out of the hospitals, get the government out of all of these great institutions that were established by actually the churches. Go do your history. Who created the colleges? Who created St. Joseph's and St. Mary's and St. Jude's and Mount Sinai? Who created these institutions? That's right, it was the churches. The churches were the ones that were providing the compassionate service and welfare. Well, the secular progressives said, hey, these guys over here that don't believe in God, well, that's not fair. Well, it is fair. All you have to do is create your own godless, what do you want? I won't call it a church, but let's say you create your own godless organization, and then you can fund your own hospitals, your own education system, and so forth. But instead, what they did was they undermined and they penetrated and they literally usurped these organizations, and they got them. Well, actually, I won't even say that they did this, because if you look at the 1800s during the Second Awakening, that Second Awakening was the beginning of the lay evangelical and the Christian movement becoming servants of mammon, because it became a point where that is when the lay leaders and the priests, the ministers, whatever you want to call it, became professional ministers. And so they created an education and theology and those types of things. It's very much like the Catholic Church, where that was your job and that's all you did. Before that, John Adams' father was a church leader, and he was also, I believe, a cobbler. I mean, he provided a trade, took care of his family, and administered to the community through a lay leading type of function. And what happened was they said, well, administering to the people is just, it's a full-time job. And they got everybody, the parishioners, to believe in this. And during this awakening, what happened was these troops started coming into town, and they would pitch up a tent. They'd have these revivals. People would come and they would donate all their money. Once they, figured they sapped enough money out of the town, they'd pack up, they'd go to the next town. So if you understand the function of the church before that, when a person was bestowed with a health problem, or when the person was bestowed with a loss of job or what have you, when they were down on their luck, they could go to the local church, and that church would be able to administer for their temporal welfare. Well, when all of a sudden that tent is packed up and gone to another town, how do you do that if you've lost your job or you're sick and you need some help with medical care or what have you? How do you do that? It's gone. And so is your money. And if you understand what was happening, this was the actualization of ministers going in towards the financial side of preaching. And that is what happened. And that's why I tell people, go to the Circle of Protection today. As a matter of fact, I'm so giving because it's Valentine's Day. I am going to give you the signators, that is the current signators for the Circle of Protection, on my podcast page. And I'll put the PDF up there so you can go through all the churches that are supporting putting state welfare on a higher priority so that they can take more money from you good hard earners, so that they can give to the indolent, so that the churches can keep their money. In other words, these churches have been abdicating their responsibility since the 1800s, and they've been getting better and better at it because they've been passing off you, their parishioners, over to these state institutions, these government institutions, and they're creating more of it. As a matter of fact, one of the ways they're trying to save money currently is by actually delivering or mailing you food packages instead of you getting food stamps, because the government's saying, well, we can't even afford this anymore. We get to a point, folks, when we can know there's not enough other people's money left to go around, and we're taking on more and more debt. This is so immoral. And what's going on is in these schools, and what happened today is an indictment on our society and how we've debased ourselves. That's plain and simple. And changing or getting rid of the Second Amendment is about the stupidest thing a person can even utter. That this has nothing to do with the Constitution, other than the fact, as I said before, that we are egregiously violating that Constitution by allowing the federal government to do all sorts of things that have not been delegated those powers by the states. And I will tell you that the states do have that authority and they do have that power. And so as I've been going through all different types of marketing, and, this today should be a primary, and this whole rant should hopefully feed you with some marketing to say, what is it going to take, folks? What do I need to say to motivate you to say, it is about time we demand that the federal government abide by the Constitution and allow our local institutions to take their power back, get the right institutions involved in these things, such as churches and local communities, and let them start driving their curriculum, create competition, not globalist standards, so that we can actually start learning what is better and what isn't better, because we have all sorts of technology and we have this archaic system that we call the education system that cannot keep up anymore. And so it's just broke. The education system is broke, and that's why one of the next books I will be writing when we move past this Republic Review problem will be ending the self-licking ice cream cone, and how we can take back the education system to where we become the number one educated nation in the world. I'm telling you, our elected officials do not care whether we're the most educated and most literate nation. What they care is we're the most law-abiding by their unconstitutional laws, and the most we do what we're told. We're the useful idiots that they need us to be. Right? That's what they need. They need good citizens, not critical thinkers.